Mars is an energy, and imagine that energy is kind of like a giant spotlight and it's shining down onto Earth. Now, if you have any planets in your chart that are around the degrees that Mars is shining on, then that spotlight is going to come down on you and you're going to notice it, you're going to feel it.
So I have a friend who was in the corporate world and she went to an astrologer. And the astrologer said to her that it's a great time for her to be learning new skills and for changing her career path. Now, she'd been thinking of a particular healing career for years, but she was just a bit worried because her corporate career was going well. And this gave her the confidence to go and learn that particular kind of healing. And today she's a well-known healer. She's doing really well. So people have had two sorts of reactions to her story. There are believers who've said, look, wasn't this amazing that the astrologer was able to point the period in her life where she was able to go and study, and it was the period where she would be successful in a different career. While the skeptics said no matter when she would take on a new career, she would have been successful. And this is just a coincidence that the astrologer told her that. So today, we're going to explore all these issues. We're going to try and understand where astrology comes from, how it can help us in our personal life, in the development of our lives, and also how it will show us strengths, challenges, and potential in our life. And we're going to delve into astrology, but two different kinds of astrology today. We're going to look at Western astrology, and we're going to look at Vedic astrology. And we have here with us some great experts who are going to help us to decipher astrology, so to say. Because there are so many times where I've looked up at the sky and thought, how do these celestial bodies determine my destiny? And do they determine my destiny? And I hear that from a lot of people. They cannot understand how the position of the stars at birth and later in life can determine your life, basically. So welcome to the first episode of our new series, Mystical Practices for Modern Minds. And this is part of our season, Ancient Wisdom for Modern Living. Today we have with us, as I said, two fantastic astrologers. We have with us today Liz Norman, who's been an astrologer for 20 years. She's a Western astrologer and she combines it with backflower remedies and homeopathy so she can really help people with their health, healing, and wellness. We also have Dr. Sundeep Kochar, who's been a Vedic astrologer for 25 years, and he's well known in the TV and the radio space. And he famously predicted the US elections and that Barack Obama would win and Donald Trump would win. So welcome to the chat, Liz and Dr. Sandeep.
Thank you so much, Anshu, for having us. It's always lovely to interact with different energies. And I think I'm feeling so good about it because mostly, people have apprehensions whether, there's Vedic science, which is more from the eastern part of the world, or it is Western astrology, which has better relevance. And today, I think I'm open even to learn a lot of things from Liz as well.
Thank you. And it's a pleasure to be here and to talk, because astrology is just such a wonderful tool, as we both know, working with it day in, day out. And this is what we can be sharing with your lovely audience.
Thank you. I'm delighted. This is such a treat for me to have one person who does Vedic astrology and one person who does Western astrology, and talking to them both at the same time. I can't tell you how excited I am. So we'll start with asking each of you to explain the foundational framework of astrology, or of your kind of astrology, to us, and how it can help people with their lives, with their personal growth, with their decision making. Liz, would you like to start?
Yeah, I'm very happy to start. So astrology is the movement of the planets, the celestial bodies. That's astronomy. We study the movement of the planets, but their effect on us on Earth is astrology. We're saying how are the movements and the energy of those planets going to affect us here on Earth? And then how do we work with that energy? So we're looking at patterns, we're looking at cycles, we're looking at that celestial dance, because each of those planets is going at its own unique pace, and they're going to dance and weave in and out of each other. And it is the most beautiful, exquisite dance. And if we understand that energy, we can align with it. We can dance with it instead of against it. And that, to me, is the key of astrology, is learning to align with that energy, to know when we should swim, when we should float, when we should surf, because the energy is moving at its own pace. So that's generically what I see as all astrology, the movement of the planets. Western astrology is based on the tropical zodiac. So this is where the main difference would be, because obviously I'll let Dr. Sundeep explain in much more detail, because that's his discipline. But the tropical zodiac is very much based on that dance of the sun and the earth. So we mark that movement around the ecliptic with the 4 anchor points of the solstices and the equinoxes. And they are the beginning of each of the seasons. So although they share the same names, the signs, they are not the same. So in Western astrology, the tropical zodiac is where we divide that ecliptic of the sun going around the earth into 12 based on the seasonal wheel. And so that's why I love working with it, because it connects us to these cycles, to this dance. So that's my very small nutshell. That's what tropical Western astrology is, and it links us to those cycles.
Thank you, Liz. Dr. Sundeep?
Yeah, of course. Thank you, Liz, for beautifully explaining the dance of the celestial bodies and impact on human being. That's amazing. I really love that. So coming back to the Indian concept of astrology in Sanskrit, Anshu, we call it Jyotish. Ish is God and Jyot is light. This is light of God. Why it is light of God? Because in Indian system, this astrology is a part of Vedas. The oldest scriptures on the planet is more than 5,000 years old. And it is a part of Rig Veda. And you won't find anything written beyond that. And, whatever calculations they have done, sages at that time with their divine connect, without the help of any telescope or satellites in that era, that calculation is still true. It is still valid and is impacting that. So from Vedas, the oldest scriptures, to the MacBook where I see the horoscope, this is a long journey. And anything which is still existing, I think it has definitely a beautiful impact on human being. I always say destination of life is already destined from the day one to the last day, and it cannot be changed. So something which is pre-written, mostly at the time of birth, and which is already predefined. So I always say best is go with the flow. Basic difference also between Western astrology and Indian astrology. For them, it is sun, which is the most important thing. In Indian astrology, it is the moon, because here in this part of the world, we are supposed to be more emotional.
So, Dr. Sundeep, you just said something which got me thinking. You said if the whole life is predetermined by the horoscope, do we have no free will?
So when I say destiny is fixed, how do you spell destiny? D-E-S?
T-I-N-Y, yeah.
T-I-N-Y. Though there is a tiny word attached with destiny as well. And destiny itself says there is a scope of some changes. And what is that? So according to me, when I say destiny is fixed, that means 70% is something which you can't choose. You can't choose your parents. You can't choose the family or city or the place you're born in. The environment where you are born in, you can't choose. Like there are people who are born with silver spoon. There are people who are born in a very, very, very low, situation financially and otherwise. Maybe in that part of the world where there is no technology. So 70% is a part which is already distant. Now coming back to the remaining 30%, which is exactly what you spoke, free will. So what opportunity you are getting and how you are utilizing can influence the destiny, which is 70% fixed. So 30% is always in anyone's hand. That is the reason I always say no matter how educated you are, no matter how intelligent or wise you are, the more important thing is what is your behavior. So I always
Mhm.
say, if your behavior is good and time is bad, you won't feel a thing. And when your behavior is bad and time is good, again you won't feel it is a good time, because it is all about, a man is a social animal. So the way you perceive, you start hitting me, I will stop talking to you. It works at energy level. What you seek is seeking you. So I bring that element of energies in between, and that is the reason 70 and 30 make 100. That is how life goes.
That was wonderful. So I want to ask you both another basic question for our viewers, and that is that, so there's two things. I guess there's your birth chart when you're born, and also the position of the planets as you go through life. So can you explain to us how these two things affect people's lives, and how can it help with people's development?
Yeah. So I mean, that was a beautiful, beautiful description of the birth chart. You know, that seed potential that you were saying. You know, it's a map, that this beautiful divine map almost, that shows us our natural talents, our natural gifts, what we're here to shine. You know, we're here to shine and bring those gifts to light. We also carry challenges. That's the birth chart. That's the snapshot of where that energy was when we were born. So that's the birth chart. And that remains, I like to call it the seed potential, that we can either grow and flourish into the best that it can be, or we don't water it and we don't work with it. So then the planets keep moving, and their energy that affects us on Earth keeps changing as they move through the skies. So, you know, let me give you one really good example. This year, you know, the planets move, and in their own beautiful dance. We had two planets, Jupiter and Uranus, came together. They came together and their energies were amplified because they were together. And that was a seed point in April this year. And Jupiter is the planet of expansion, and Uranus is the planet of breaking new ground, of like thinking outside the box. We add them together, they come together once every about 14 years. So if you knew that that was the energy around that was seeding something that's a 14-year cycle, you become empowered to work with that potential energy.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And Dr. Sandeep?
Yeah, almost the same. You had asked me about the placement when a person is born. So astrologer can help you with the help of those planets when you are born, that this is what your strength is, and this is where you need to change. So that is something which is almost fixed, because you are born with that kind of mindset. You know, everyone's nature is different. But your question is, what about the placement of planet which keep on changing? The placement of planet at this moment, they have equal say in predicting anything about a person. So a person who is running a phase, we call it in Sanskrit a dasha. Like
Mhm.
a person is born in some particular moon sign. In that particular moon sign, that degree can define the nakshatra. The lord of nakshatra is a planet which will be ruling you from your time of birth, and then it keep on changing. So that is how the change in time, change in mindset, and change in situation circumstances take place. So this is something which is from the time of birth. But what about the planet which are moving now? So they can also influence a person, good or bad. So you definitely need to inculcate the transitional planet along with the placement of planet when the person is born, and then you have to combine in predicting something which can be 2 plus 2 4, or which can be 2 minus 2 0, because that a good phase and a negative transit can nullify that.
Okay. And then you just mentioned dasha, Dr. Sandeep. Could you go into that more? Because I know that the dashas are important in people's lives, the dashas, the mahadashas, as they in Vedic astrology. So will you explain that more to our audience? And how can people use that again for their personal development?
Absolutely. See, the most important thing is, it is not about a person. It is about the time the person is running. I must also tell you this: the word dasha is a Sanskrit word. Dasha means the state of your mind. The planet will start influencing person will also try to change the mindset of a person. So that is the impact of dasha. The state of mind get changed with the change of planets in any individual's life.
And Liz, the other thing that I want you to talk to us about is retrogrades. Because I know so many people who start freaking out when there's Mercury retrograde and they start saying, we're not going to travel and we're not going to do this, we're not going to do that. And is it such a bad thing, a retrograde period? Or can you actually use it for personal reflection, for some sort of development?
So number one with astrology, take the fear out. Okay, because there's always that element of free will. Okay, the key is work with the energy. If you understand the energy, you have the capability of working with it. So Mercury is the planet that goes retrograde most often. So that's the one that everyone talks about. It goes retrograde 3 times a year for about 3 weeks. And we have the build up and the after effect. So its effect can be about 5-6 weeks. Mercury is the planet that rules all of our communication. So, we live in a world where we are so communication dominated, emails, texts, we also remember astrology is about cycles. And one of the biggest things that it did for me with retrogrades is we tend to live at one pace in the Western world, which is go, go, go. And that's not honoring the cycles of nature. So retrogrades are a reminder that we don't go 100 miles an hour all of the time, because then we're not always going in the right direction. So when a planet is retrograde, its apparent movement compared to that of the Earth is apparently going slower. Think of all words reflect, review, rethink, reassess, reframe. So the other big thing with Mercury retrogrades, is beware that there may be miscommunication. So big C words, concise, clear communication, check, clarify, because there is the possibility in the air of miscommunication. So if you send a message and it's possible the other person may not get it. If, again, we work with the energy, we can make sure that our communication is as clear and concise as it could be. Actually, I'm a great fan of retrogrades. They are a slowing down in a world that is at 100 miles an hour.
Wonderful. And Dr. Sundeep, how would you explain retrogrades in Vedic astrology? Because I believe it's quite connected with karma and life purpose. Is that right? Different retrogrades?
Retrograde planets are the blessing. If there is a dictum in Vedic astrology, like malefic planet like Saturn, it gets retrograde, it looks like more bad. But they say no. If a malefic planet is debilitated like Saturn, if it becomes retrograde, it will behave like an exalted planet. So this is the beauty, it reverses the tendency of that particular planet. So that is something which is so good. But yes, as you said, and as this said, this business of astrology, which is a divine science, the science of the stars, has unfortunately become a business of fear and lies.
I want to ask you both, what happens if someone comes to you and you see something in their chart which will give them a lot of fear?
Okay, so that's a really interesting question. So I'm always looking for the medicine in a chart, because everything is only a set of possibilities, and so there is a potential for some astrological planets in certain situations in aspect to other planets, or as we might call debilitated, that are in a more inherently challenging position, say, than another. But we still then actually, the last thing I would do is use the word fear, because there's an awareness, because there's always a way of working with that energy. Our jobs as astrologers is empowering our clients to use the potential of the birth chart or the transits in the best way.
Lovely. And Dr. Sundeep?
Yeah, absolutely. See, astrology is about empowering a person, not putting any fear in mind. So either now, this is up to you how you take it. If an astrologer is telling you something, like I said, oh, your wife would be a dominating wife, or you tell a person your wife would be a powerhouse of energy. This is what the responsibility of astrologer is, to make a person understand about a person. That is how it is. The fear factor.
So are there any misunderstandings that you would both like to clarify about astrology? Because astrology is very, very deep. Like in India, it's come from the Vedas. Liz, where did Western astrology originate?
It's around 2,000 years ago. It's the Babylonians. Yeah. It's Greece. It has its origins.
So it's Greece. So it's orthodox. Yeah. It's come from orthodox.
It's still thousands of years.
Yeah. So, and this is something which is so deep. Do you think people are taking it very frivolously today?
Yeah. Number one, I would say to anybody with their journey into astrology is you are more than your sun sign. That if you look at the newspapers, and that's how some people look at it, they will go, I am a Leo, a Pisces. If you simply said, divided the population into their sun signs, there are 12.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot divide everybody on this earth into 12. You are at least your sun and your moon. Well, suddenly we're doing 12 times 12, which is 144. And that's before we've even looked at Mercury and Venus and all the other planets. Number one, you are more than your sun sign.
I would add on to the same. If I'll ask you who you are, and if you reply me by saying I'm married, is it a right answer? No, because somebody can be creative, somebody can be a doctor, somebody can have various aspects of life. So this is what Liz meant. You are not one sun sign. You are a combination of many things. And especially in Indian astrology, we have moon sign, like they call it Aries. From 21st March to 21st April is Aries. But that's not right. In Indian system, it is moon sign. So there it is sun sign, here it is moon sign. In moon sign, they are nakshatras, the constellation. And in every nakshatra, there are 4 types. So that means 108. So you're already 108 types of things. And that is only one side of astrology. And then when you are born with the set of planet, which planet is expecting you, so that is how it is. So every planet can influence you and make you a different person and unique from every other person on the planet.
And Liz, as we were talking earlier before we started this conversation, you work with backflower remedies, you work with homeopathy, and you work with astrology. So you can do this whole package, in terms of healing and helping people. Will you delve a little bit more into that and tell our viewers about it?
Yeah, I mean, what's wonderful is that the key principles of homeopathy fit so beautifully with the key principles of astrology, and the 2 biggest are the idea of individuality. Exactly as that Dr. Sundeep said, we are a unique set of planets in certain placements in our chart. And they make that dance of those planets, particularly the moon. Actually, we work very closely in medical astrology with the moon because it moves so quickly. The moon will change signs every 2.5 days. And one of the key principles of homeopathy is individuality. And it's your individual response to if you're ill. Everybody could have a cold. One person's going to be angry. Another person's going to want lots of hugs and cups of tea and people around them. And another person's going to want to be very quiet and hide away. That's your moon sign, is your emotional reaction. And that's very individual because the moon moves quickly. We look at your individual response to an illness, and we look at it in the totality of your whole case. So there's an immediate synergy of the 2 languages. So when you're having a consultation, they kind of flow in and out of each other. And so it enables me, when I'm having a consultation, with the language and the insights of the chart, to go much deeper, much quicker when I'm working with people. So that's the kind of number one, that their philosophies are the same. And then we have literal links between the Bach flowers and the 12 zodiac signs. Dr. Bach was an amazing man, lived about 100 years ago. He was a physician, a doctor first. Then he realized we were so much more than our bodily health. He became a homeopath. And then he loved homeopathy, but it wasn't accessible enough for him. He wanted to create the beautiful healing herbs that we could all use. So he went into Mother Nature and he developed the 38 flower remedies, which are really easy for anybody to use. They're completely safe, they're gentle, and they literally link to the zodiac signs. So there's a literal golden thread between them.
Thank you. And also, I mean, I've had a lot more Vedic astrology readings, but Dr. Sundeep, you'll be able to relate to this. Years ago, someone I remember had looked at my chart and recommended, like, a few things that I should add to my life. And one of them is breath work, pranayams. And I do that about 3 times a week. And when I'm away from it for like a couple of months, if I'm traveling a lot or something, I can tell the difference in my health. So, Dr. Sundeep, do you want to comment on health and astrology from a Vedic point of view?
Absolutely right. And, I agree with you. They say everything has become psychosomatic. What is the definition? Bodily disorder formed by human brain. So overthinking mind and negative thinking mind has no difference. It creates stress, which leads to anxiety, and that creates some chemical emotional imbalances in body, and that is how somebody can attract some kind of ailment. Well, 6 years back, I was in London. I read an article, and the headline said, "Doctors will keep on telling you it is all in the mind." So I was zapped, and I read it, and they said they have discovered another phenomenon known as BDS, bodily distress syndrome. That one person understands something from the mind, and then doctors say we have no cure. Go to a counselor or a psychiatrist. They didn't name any astrologer, but that is how it is. So what I'm saying is all in the mind. So I always say a happy person is always a healthy person, and how to be happy. Happiness is a habit. If you're waiting for something to happen, then keep waiting. And if you have a habit to be happy now, you will always be happy no matter what. And that is the beauty of astrology, which can help you to understand this is your journey. If next 7 years, 10 years, 18 years are going to be like this, then there has to be an acceptance. Because if you are trying to swim against the tide, you will be draining out your energy.
So can you both give me some practical tips on how people can actually use astrology more than just reading their little chart in the morning and, getting into a panic state if something is not right? How can they actually use it to help them?
Easiest ways to start understanding astrology is to understand the ebb and flow. And you can start with the moon. You can start, if you start nowhere else, you can track the moon cycles, from the new moon, when the sun and moon are together. And that becomes like a seed point. The moon is dark at that stage, and we have a new seed point. And then as the moon moves over the next 2 weeks, the light increases. And, I'm a great gardener as well. And so I plant by the moon. I go back to those ancient cycles and I plant my seeds by the moon at that new seed point. And when I move the plants when they're little, and I plant them at the full moon so that I'm working with the energy. So if we understand the new moon as a seed point, and then the full moon is where the sun and moon are opposite in the sky, and their energy is illuminated. So we have a culmination, a fruition, and we can celebrate what's come to light, what's done well, but also we illuminate, come to light anything that didn't work. And we can use the second half of the moon cycle to release anything that wasn't working for us.
Wonderful. Dr. Sundeep?
Yeah, absolutely. One should have first faith in astrology. Like somebody may have some bad experiences with bad astrologers, like in any kind of profession, you find good or bad. But I think you need to find the right astrologer, like Liz is. She's quite experienced. And so, last month I gave a TED talk, and I said today I will talk about AI, which is not artificial in nature, which I will talk about the real AI, which is astrological intelligence. So understanding yourself, understanding your mind, understanding your strength, weakness, and potential, and bringing those changes in you. That is how you can evolve and lead a better, happier life.
Oh, that's fantastic. Tell me about karma and dharma, because I know in our astrology, because we look at it as a whole, it came out of the Vedas, everything is about karma and what you're meant to do, your life purpose. So how can people use their life's karma and why they've come onto the planet, which is probably apparent in the horoscope, to be more at peace with who they are and to be more at peace with their life's purpose?
There is a Sanskrit word called prarabdha. Prarabdha means the deeds of the past birth. The deeds of the past birth, and because of that, you're born in that particular family or city or country, wherever. So your journey begins from there. So once you understand, okay, this is your journey, then acceptance will happen. So normally for a normal person who doesn't believe in astrology will keep going where he's going. So the day you will understand your purpose in this life, you will start working towards it. Ikagai in Japanese they say. Secondly, now your
Ikigai.
question about your about your dharma and karma. So dharma is your responsibility. It's not only religion or following some rituals. It is about your own purpose of this life, your own responsibility towards everyone. So in astrology, very interesting. Number one, Raj Yoga. Raj Yoga is a combination of two planets which can elevate a person during the phase of two planets. House is house of your dharma and luck. 10th house is house of karma. So when dharma and karma, these two planets are together, ninth and 10th Lord, Liz, you can also find in your client's horoscope. Whenever there's a ninth or 10th Lord together, it is known as Dharma Karma Dhipati Rajo. In Sanskrit, they call it Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. One world, one family. That means the purpose of the person who is born with this combination is to do something for humanity and mankind. So they are the one who live their life not only with passion, but with compassion. And that makes them complete.
That's wonderful. Liz, I also want to ask you a term that I see a lot in Western astrology, and that is transits. Will you explain that for our audience?
Yes. So transit literally means move. And a transit is the movement of the planets in the sky right now. So if we say Mars is, so in Western astrology, let's just take Mars, for example. The planet Mars, the fiery go-getter planet, is moving through the zodiac sign of Cancer. So we would say that Mars is transiting through Cancer. It means it is moving through that part of the skies. So that's what a transit means. And then how we interpret that in terms of the language, I like to think of Mars as an energy, and imagine that energy is kind of like a giant spotlight and it's shining down onto Earth. Now, if you have any planets in your chart that are around the degrees that Mars is shining on, then that spotlight is going to come down on you and you're going to notice it. You're going to feel it. If you don't, and that light is shining and it's like 10 foot away from you, it might be affecting people around you, but it isn't affecting you personally. So transits are happening all day, every day. They're not affecting all of us all of the time.
Right. Thank you. And Dr. Sundeep, do we have this concept in Vedic astrology as well? The concept of a transit or not really?
Absolutely, yes. I said it, like there are two sets of planets. One, the planet when you are born, all the 9 planets are aligned, and that becomes your horoscope. The placement of planet, the time of birth, that is fixed. That's not going anywhere, and this is what your personality is, your journey of life. Then I said the other side of astrology is the transit. In Hindi or Sanskrit, we call it Gochar. So every planet has like Saturn is 2.5 years, Jupiter is 1 year. That is how it is. So every planet has its own speed, and they keep on changing the sign with their own speed. So that this transit of planet can influence a person's life, good or bad, depending on what that particular planet is good for you, or that particular planet is not that great, or depending on which sign it is good. Like she gave an example of Mars going into Cancer. In Indian system, and when Mars goes into Cancer, Cancer is the house of peace, and Mars is a planet which is fire. Anyone who has a Mars in 4th house in their natal horoscope, the person has a tendency to get higher blood pressure. They are the one who are aggravated. Anyone can provoke you just like that. So for them, they need to calm down and understand, okay, this is something which is a problem. I need to change. So the transit of the planets can influence a person's mind and their life. Definitely, yes.
Okay. Thank you so much for this incredible chat. Would each of you like to give people some advice about astrology or some insight before we wrap up the chat? Liz?
Don't be fearful. Understand the energy. Work with the energy. 2 words I always use in my practice: validate and empower. If you understand the energy, it validates your gifts, validates anything that's challenging, and most importantly, it empowers you to use your free will to do that better.
Fabulous. And Dr. Sundeep?
Yeah, I also believe in astrology has a bigger purpose to help you understand about your journey. So go to astrologer, find out your real purpose, understand your strength, weakness, and potential. Try never to compare your life with anyone else. You have your own individual journey, so have better contentment. And no matter what, be in the moment and live a happy life.
Thank you so much. That was such an incredible chat with both of you. I love some of the things I'm going away with is celestial dance of the planets and how we should work in harmony with it, and about meditating and looking inwards rather than looking outwards. What beautiful messages you've both given us. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Anshu, for having us. And lovely meeting you, Liz, here. And look forward to see you someday in person.
Andrew, I could talk with you for hours and hours. So thank you for joining us together. It's been absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for being here with us today. I hope you learned something new. I hope you've learned to look at the stars now and know that if you went to an astrologer, you would find very interesting stories about your life and you'd be able to interpret a lot more than just your horoscope in the newspaper every morning.
The Kabbalah, on the other hand, was passed on to highly selective individuals and from some masters of the Kabbalah to their usually small numbers of disciples.
It's usually a time that was really terrible for at least the Jewish nation. If you go back all the way to Maaseh HaMerkavah, to the working of the chariot, the origin maybe of Kabbalah, we suspect, is 586 BCE.